the 3 keys and the 3 points to the journey. Now, this video, if you're early on in the journey, some of this video might not make much sense to you. But I like to make content that helps everybody that is on the journey. And I try and put out lots of free content to support you on the journey. If you're wanting to work deeper and understand, or should I say, understand these points at a deeper level, then my website is there. The Journey to Oneness is there, which is my deeply weekly spiritual lessons, and we dive deep in every single week. So the 3 keys. The first key, or the first shift, energetic shift that you will move into, is ego, death, and dark night of the soul. This is when your spiritual activation happens. This is when Kundalini activations. This is when the false identity is collapsing. Now, I'm going to go into it in more detail in a minute, but I just want to touch on the 3 keys first, and then we'll dive deeper. Then what happens once that false identity has collapsed, then ego death has taken place, you then move into the spiritual identity and you start to move into that soul alignment. From here, people can get stuck at this point. Now, the next shift that you take can be hard for people because the mind and ego operates in a place of wanting to identify and wanting outcome based. The next shift that is point 3, the third key shift that happens, is the collapse of all identity when you start to walk the pathless path. Now let's dive into it a bit deeper. So what happens in that first initial identity, the false identity of ego, death, and dark night of the soul? This is when everything is collapsing. So anything that you have held on to that is false to your true being, your soul being, will now start to dissipate away. This is when we start to see friends start to suddenly fall away. The mind and ego is really activated at this point. You will feel that your mind just will not stop. And this is because you are shifting out of that mind and ego-based way of living into a soul-led way of living. Your world will also start to collapse at this point. Everything that you have built false narratives on will start to fall away. Also, at this point, you start to question the matrix world, i.e. the television. No longer the television. You'll struggle at this point to watch the television, to listen to certain music, to see certain things. Remember, you are now being activated with your energy and frequency, and it is dissipating out. That Kundalini energy is dissipating, is shifting you, is purifying you. You are purifying at a very, very, very rapid rate. Now, I also talk about first, second, third, fourth wavers. You know, if you are a fourth waver as well, fourth wavers, met in the 2024 energy and frequency 2025, your energy is happening very, very rapidly. You are purifying in a very rapid frequency. And I'm working with more and more people that are early on in the journey that are going, Kat, I feel like I can't even get up for breath. I feel like I'm being thrown into those big waves. They're tunnels of waves. That is because you are a fourth waver, and it is very, very rapid for fourth wavers. Okay, you will find shifts and energy and alignment when you are out in nature. Nature is your place where you will find inner peace on this journey. While ever you are in mind and ego, while ever you are searching, endlessly searching on this journey, will keep you locked in chaos. Get out of the endless searching, bring it back to your true soul purpose. And that is coming into that peace, into that nature, into that frequency. Your spiritual gifts are highly activated. So your psychic gifts are activated. Remember, Shakti energy dances up to that third eye. Your third eye now is expanding at a very, very, very rapid rate. So you now start to understand quantum entanglement. You start to look at Van Gogh's, and I'm using this as an example. You look at Van Gogh's pictures, they have a whole different meaning. You're now starting to understand the connection to the universe, to Tesla, to 369, to Einstein. These are all now starting to bombard at you. And your spiritual healer's gifts are really activated. Empathy, you can feel energy and frequency and people's emotions. You walk in a room and you know what they're going through. You know what they're feeling. You are now rapidly shedding all the false identity, and you are moving into that soul alignment. Now, I've talked about it. The second one is soul alignment. This is when you start to really come into that alignment with soul. Your soul purpose is activated. You start to question what you have done all your life. You are now wanting to be in service. You are now wanting, and when I talk about service, you want to make the world a better place. You feel it at such a deep empathic level that you can no longer ignore it. You have that connection to people, to children, to animals, to the world, to the earth, and you want to make it a better place. You know that it is your calling. Now, you'll have known this throughout your whole world, your whole being. You'll have always felt this calling. It will have felt, and you may have got into careers that you thought were going to be that calling, but they have been in false identity. And so you're now shifting it. You're now changing it. You feel that calling and you know it at such a deep soul level. The next is when you start to shift into this is point 2, and this is often where people get stuck on the journey, because at this point you really start to identify with that soul alignment and that spiritual frequency. Now, this is what can keep people stuck on this journey, and it's quite hard for me to talk it in physical terms, in 3D language, because you've collapsed down the matrix identity. You've now moved into the spiritual identity, but you're still wanting to approach it from, there must be spiritually more that I must learn and try and understand. And yes, those spiritual books, let me get these, those spiritual books, The Alchemist, The Power of Now, Untethered Soul, are all incredible books that will help you on the journey. But there comes a point on the journey where you shift into that higher frequency, that higher consciousness, and you ascend. And at that point, it collapses all identity. And the mind then goes, well, what is my identity? At that point, you often stop seeing all those signs and synchronicities, and the mind questions, well, what's next? You are now walking that pathless path. And if you are at that point and you need help, you need support, my website is there. My website's there for all points of the journey, whether it is understanding the twin flame journey, whether it is really growing that beautiful soul-led business, aligning with your soul purpose. All help is on my website. And if you're next level, then the identity, the complete collapse of the identity and shifting into that beautiful state of oneness, of divine, of consciousness, then my journey to oneness is